was funny. I didn't see that.
Good morning. Today is Tuesday, October 6, 2015. This is the regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Thank you. Good morning. Let the record reflect Commissioners Sobroff, Johnson, Figueroa Villa, Kim, and Saltzman are present, and we have a quorum. Number one on the agenda, commission comments.
Any commissioner comments this morning?
I do have one this morning, Mr. President. I had the opportunity and the pleasure to speak last Friday at the graduation from the Academy, which is something I've always enjoyed doing and appreciate the opportunity. There were 28 graduates, which is slightly up from where we've been, not the target, but a little bit up. On the targets for ethnicity, was 7% African American, which isn't quite where I know the department would like it to be, and on gender was 21% women, which is a good place to be. And I just bring it up to remind each of us of the continuing effort the department's making to recruit effectively and to continue with the diversification of the force. And want to thank the department for allowing me to participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments?
Sure.
Should we move to the report of the Chief of Police then?
Okay, they did have, okay, we do have three comment cards. Damon Jackson, Jamie Garcia, and Hamid Khan.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I hear that the police feel afraid, or say people are, the activists are, putting fumes on a fire or whatever. But that's not true. The police are, would say, it's not been. They're not being It's been on a great decline. Nobody's messed with law enforcement, but obviously the public in the community is the one that's being targeted and being killed and put in jail. I just want to speak on, my friend Damon Jackson that was killed by the police, and myself that's also been shot by the police in the back, and how, this department doesn't really, speak on, help the community, because that's why I'm here to, to help the community, try to make things better. But obviously, some people on the board is, rather, look at their dollars and their script that they're reading. I don't know where, a lot of this stuff is coming from, but, I just got to say this. I love California. I love LA. I've been here all my life, and, I'm not going anywhere. I'll travel, but I'll come back. But I just wanted to say that y'all got to do better, man. I don't know how y'all even get here if y'all not even for the community. I just, if you're not from the community, just step down, please. You need people that's going to help the community, just not going to say that they're helping the community. And obviously they're not meaning that at all. Mr. Charlie Beck. Yeah, I'll put you out there. Where's Bustamante at? Because, he's a farcist for real. Like I said, I can't even get my police report. Something is wrong with y'all department. If you got 7 different police reports on me and I can't get one, what is up with that? Nobody wants to question. Nobody wants to say anything about that. But I'm going to continue to come up here and address the problem that we have as a community. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jamie Garcia, Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. So, Mr. Johnson, in a recent op-ed, it was said that you were open to community and community discussion and meeting with the community. In a CBS interview, you met with college students because they just asked you. So I just wanted to remind you, on September 15th, I gave you a letter. You acknowledged that you received the letter, and I asked for a response. And so last Tuesday was the day that I said, give you 2 weeks for you to respond, and you didn't respond. I asked for a meeting. Nothing came of that either. So I'm kind of wondering what that issue is and why that's not happening. And actually, I spoke with Sobroff outside about that same letter, and he told me basically told me that he didn't care about the letter. That the letter itself was...
Hold on a second.
No, it's okay. That the letter itself was not interesting to him. That he didn't care about the letter. And it was interesting. He was attempting to shake my hand in the same time. So, these are the things that we need to consider. And so the issues that were raised were the issues that are right there on the shirts. racial profiling with SARS, the sabotaging of the consent decree, the sham community hearings, and the militarization of LAPD with the use of drones.
Can you please take your seats? You're being disruptive.
So I don't know if this position at this point and us asking
you
to meet
please
with
take
you
your seats?
and
This is your second
asking for a response
warning.
to the letter is too much for you.
Can you please take your seats? Okay, I'm now asking you to leave the room.
No, I'm not. Until they escort me out, I'm not.
You need to leave the room.
Black lives, they matter here. Black lives,
Sergeant at Arms, please escort them out of the room.
not just Negroes, though. Black lives, they matter here. Black lives, they matter here.
Just the four that were standing, please.
Black lives, they matter here. Black lives, they matter here. Black lives, they matter here. You kick us out again next week because that's all you do is kick people out. You don't listen to the voices of the community. That's why you're a sham. You're nothing but a token. You are a black face on white supremacy.
You a good cop. Stand up. A bunch of bad cops. You need my police report.
So in that op-ed as well, it did state that the concerns that we're bringing to the community are reasonable. So what you saw there are reasonable concerns. What was written in that letter, despite what Soboroff said, that he said were demands, was actually research that we brought. So again, we are bringing reasonable concerns. That was from the editorial board. So we won't stop. We'll continue coming. I suggest that you answer that email. Answer it and read what we're saying because it's very reasonable.
Thank you,
There are
Ms. Garcia.
concerns that
Your
are
time
really
is up.
important. No, my time wasn't up. I still had 20 seconds. So I'm just asking again for this meeting. I'm asking again for this response. And then I'm saying that if you cannot handle this, because I'm not sure if you've been set up. I'm not sure what's really going on here. But maybe you need to consider resigning.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, Hamid Khan with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. This man, Steve Soboroff, has the audacity to tell our folks outside that we don't know how to write letters. We don't know how to write letters. We don't know how to write letters that highlight and expose racial profiling. We don't know how to write letters that highlight and expose sabotaging of the consent decree. We don't know how to write letters because it exposes sham community hearings. We don't know how to write letters because it exposes increased militarization of LAPD, where this man is hiding, and I don't know where the Inspector General is, hiding those drones in his office. He has the audacity to come us and tell us that we don't know how to write letters because he's a flunky himself. He knows that because the letters are so heavy and they are so substantive and they're so factual because he can't even say face. The face, as you know, the president of the commission when he used to be, he can't say face. But we are coming to your face. Your face. The previous speaker, Jamie Garcia, gave you that letter on September 15th. You acknowledge that you have the letter. I have the letter in my hand and I'll get back to you. Mum is your answer, 0. And that's what people were saying, and that's what we were saying, that hashtag LAPC fails. Hashtag Los Angeles Police Commission fails because it's about racial profiling. It's about sabotaging of the consent decree. It's about sham community hearings. It's about militarization of LAPD. I mean, look at him. He's sitting over there just presiding over mass murders of people. 18 people have already been killed, but we'll get to that later. But what are you going to do about it? You show up on all these TV interviews and you say, I'm not taking it personal, where you are taking it personal. It is not about you only, but it is about you. So you should resign and you should leave. Because if this is the best you can do to come back to the community and only wait for photo opportunities and only wait when the cameras are going to show up, then you are useless. Then you're useless to the community. What face are you putting on to the community? How can you even sit there in all your media glory and just have this whole scripted response to people, but there is no humanity underneath. There's nothing real. People are dying. This department is rotten. You need to meet with people. You need to stop stonewalling people.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now on item number 2, report of the Chief of Police, Chief Beck.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Chief.
Thank
Good
you.
morning.
Last week, I attended the Medal of Valor and Purple Heart ceremonies for the past year. I want to thank the commissioners that attended, including President Matt Johnson. This year, we had 25 recipients. 3 of them were awarded posthumously to the widows of officers that were killed in the line of duty. We also awarded the Medal of Valor to 2 officers that were shot last year in the line of duty. Was well attended. We had about 900 people there. Great show of support for the work that the men and women of the Los Angeles Police Department and the sacrifice that the men and women of the police department give every day. On Saturday, I attended the Mounted Units primary fundraiser. As you know, all of their horses are purchased with private donation. As a matter of fact, Lieutenant Lemedico is here today to hopefully watch the Police Commission approve one of those donations. Over 100 riders participated in a 3.5-hour ride in Griffith Park. It's a beautiful event, well attended. On Sunday, I went to the Rape Treatment Center brunch, which is a fundraiser for the Rape Treatment Center. They've been in business for over 41 years. I have been a consistent supporter, and not only that, but one of the individuals that used their services as a police officer many years ago. They're a tremendous organization that does great work in Los Angeles, and it's actually a national model. Both the Rape Treatment Center and the Stewart House provide wraparound services for victims of hugely traumatic crimes, and I appreciate what they do, and we supported them at their fundraiser. Yesterday I had a press conference with Mayor Garcetti, starting Domestic Violence Awareness Month. As all of you know, we've concentrated on domestic violence in the police department over the past year by expanding our DART teams. Our DART teams are now currently in all 21 divisions. At the beginning of the year, we only had them in 10 divisions. The DART teams are domestic abuse response teams. They're service providers that team with Los Angeles police officers to do follow-up care for family and victims of domestic violence. Domestic violence in the city is up 4.7% this year. You know, we encourage those that are victims of domestic violence, be they children or spouse, to come forward and help us to stop the cycle. You know, this is a crime that affects everybody, even those that don't live in households that suffer domestic violence are oftentimes victims of individuals that are broken by that cycle. I encourage everybody to look at our Adam 12 display in the lobby. As you all are well aware, Martin Milner passed this past month, and in his honor, and to recognize the effect that Adam 12, the series, has had on many in law enforcement, not just the Los Angeles Police Department, we have a display in the front lobby. Last week, Los Angeles Police Department became aware of a video posted online that detailed an individual that appeared to be stalking a uniformed Los Angeles police officer in the downtown area. He displayed a handgun in the video in violation of state penal code in his vehicle. When I became aware of it last week, we put out an officer safety bulletin to make sure that officers were particularly aware of their surroundings. I also detailed Robbery Homicide Division to assume the case, which they did. That has resulted in a search warrant being served early this morning at the primary suspect's residence, an arrest of the secondary suspect in Downey over the weekend, and a warrant being issued for the arrest of the primary suspect. Right now, Robbery Homicide Division is actively looking for him. I encourage, and the individual knows that he's wanted. I'm not going to release his name at this time because I want to control the investigation as much as I possibly can and limit the response to Robbery Homicide Division. But the individual knows who he is, and he should turn himself in. His attorney is in contact with Robbery Homicide Division. We're trying to negotiate that surrender at this point. Overall, crime in the city of Los Angeles is up 12.6% over last year. Violent crime is at 19.8% increase. I will mention that is down from a high of a 32% increase earlier in the year, so we're making some progress. Our strategies are working. We saw a significant decrease in gang violence in South Los Angeles this weekend over the past weekend, so that was a very positive outcome of our deployment of strategies. Unfortunately, we suffered a number of homicides in other parts of the city, primarily domestic related, So it's a particularly poignant time to talk about Domestic Violence Awareness Month. City of Los Angeles has suffered 221 homicides so far this year. That compares to 197 at this time last year and about 210 in the year prior. 19.8% increase in violent crime, as I said. Shootings are up some 27%. Every one of our bureaus is showing an increase in Part 1 crime. Gang-related crime is up 16.2%. Gang-related homicides are up 5.8%. And aggravated assaults committed by gang members are up 33.4%. Traffic collisions, overall, serious and fatal traffic collisions are down in the city of Los Angeles so far this year, 2.9%, with traffic accidents resulting in death being down 2.2%. Motor vehicle versus pedestrians in total are up 2.8%, but serious motor vehicle versus pedestrians are down significantly at 7.3%. Sworn personnel on payroll, we have 9,885 sworn Los Angeles police officers, 2,679 civilian personnel. This week is Civilian Appreciation, this month is Civilian Appreciation Month. You'll see more efforts by the department to appreciate its civilians. One of the ways that we intend to show our appreciation is increasing our hiring of civilians this year. Right now we have 598 civilian vacancies. We have just under 400 reserve officers, 372 volunteers, 61 chaplains, and 6,248 cadets in our youth program. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
We
Do
do
we
have,
any comment cards?
we have 8. The first card I can't read. It looks like it says Wyatt Colonel or something. And then there's Ted Hayes, Eddie Howard, David Sanchez, Jamie Garcia. Mr. Hayes?
Chief, before your very eyes, crimes have been committed. Misdemeanor crimes, but nevertheless committed. It involves the Ralph M. Brown Act. I hope you become acquainted with it. If not, I'm sure the city attorney can familiarize you with it. It says that when a group or groups of people commit disturbances where the meeting cannot continue, the room is to be cleared. Now, 4 people left. I don't know how many people you think comprise a group, but I would suggest 4 would be a group. And the Brown Act says the room has to be cleared, and those who did not commit a disturbance can be readmitted. Also gives the body the allowance to determine the procedure for readmittance. So far, when the room has been cleared previously, the police determined who would come back in, all right? And they determined people who did nothing at all could not come back in. They made that determination, I speculate, I surmise, on the basis of what they had to say when they were here, even though it was not disturbing. So here's what the Brown Act says about the crimes that this body may be committing. Each member of a legislative body, that means every single one of them, who attends a meeting of that legislative body where action is taken in violation of any means is kind of an absolute term, any provision of this chapter, and where the member intends to deprive the public of information which the member knows or has reason to know the public is entitled to. In other words, they don't let the people hear what the person has to say. Under this chapter is guilty of a misdemeanor. So that's the crime when people who did nothing cannot come back and get before this podium and speak their minds.
Thank you.
Eddie Howard, the Los Angeles Community Action Network.
Good morning.
A great man once said, Dr. Martin Luther King, and he said it so eloquently, and I quote, "An individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his own individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity." I stand before you today, and I speak on behalf of my community, which feel that their concerns are not being addressed. And we just say that what we deserve and what we desire is not diametrically opposite of any other community in this country in this city or in this state. We desire fair and equitable justice, and we desire to be treated as human beings. Chief Beck, I say to you today, the prism from which you operate in is a false reality, a reality that says 500 bias complaints and not one come back with any merit. That is atrocious. The reality that you operate in talks about Ezell Ford, an individual that was stopped, and we still don't know the reason that he was stopped. But this police commission, and I thank Paula Madison, who's no longer here, for standing up and saying no more to you, Chief. But this commission found that Charlton Wampler and Antonio Villegas were out of policy. Wampler on 3 charges and Villegas on 1. But you said, sir, that you were not going to discipline. That's a false reality. This reality that you operate out of, sir, also says that, yes, we're going to have body cameras, but that those cameras and those images are not going to be available to the public. That is a false reality. And then you want us to understand why there's not trust in the police department. You as the head individual, we say right now that it's egregious, reprehensible, and it's unacceptable, and it is criminal. And we're calling for your firing or your termination immediately, because that false reality has permeated itself into this community. And our community and the city of LA deserves better. Better than you, sir. Termination or else. Bye.
Thank you.
David Sanchez, followed by Jamie Garcia, Hamid Khan, Pete White, and Agustin.
Hello, everybody. My name is David Sanchez, PhD, expert on police shootings and violence, former violence reduction coordinator for LA County Health Services, and activist and also protester of police shootings. I think it's very important that we begin to understand that the police are here to save lives and not take lives, and already too many lives has been lost due to lack of the police inability to find other methods other than shooting people when they are killed. Basically what I'm saying here is that Angie Guzman, who was killed just over a week ago, she had a knife, but that does not justify her being murdered. Recently, there was a man in his 30s who was shot by the police because he threw an object at a police car. That does not justify police murder. Okay, so what is happening here is we have the police becoming over emotional and going out there and shooting people, and that must be controlled. Some years ago, I was able to get the Migra, the INS, to take psychological tests to lower the shootings at the border. And here again today, I am requesting that the LAPD begin to take psychological tests to reduce shootings on the street. I think you have betrayed Angie Guzman. The news blackout, it was a news blackout. When you don't give a person's name who was killed, that is a news blackout. There is something wrong. There is a backroom conspiracy going on within the police department to shoot poor people. And that has to change. You have betrayed many of the youth in Los Angeles. You have betrayed common sense. You have betrayed Angie Guzman. You have betrayed the poor people of Los Angeles, and therefore it's time to do something about these police shootings. Keep your gun in your pocket and stop shooting poor people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie Garcia, Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. So Norma Angelica Guzman, also known as Angie, number 17 murdered by LAPD, but we can't even speak her name because number 18 has already happened. And as the gentleman said before, for throwing a bottle. And Chief Beck, I don't know how this statement of officers just feeling reasonably concerned that their life is at danger can justify murder, can justify the first response being shooting at someone, the first response being killing someone. For me, that's very unreasonable. So when is it going to be enough deaths to realize that training isn't working, that body cameras are not keeping us safe? LAPD could have deployed a SMART team to Angie Guzman's situation. They could have deployed a SMART team to Charlie Africa, to Carlos Ocaño, Riddell Jones, Ezell Ford, all people that were known by LAPD. I was told at Angie's vigil that they had several times had confronted her. So they knew her in the community, and even knowing her in the community, they chose to fire on her. They chose to shoot her. So The community deserves compassionate and dignified and professional intervention. And LAPD is not that profession. They are not that intervention. They don't, I mean, people that come into the community with guns, people who don't know how to respond to mental health crisis, they're not the professionals that have been trained. There are people who have been to school. There are people who spend their lives dedicated to knowing how to respond to situations in a nonviolent situation that should be given the resources to be deployed into the community, to have clinics in the community, to be able to open up services in the community. But again, LAPD takes up 52% of that city's budget and don't even deploy the services that they have. So I don't know when it's become acceptable that crisis is met with crisis.
Thank you.
Agustin Cevada from the Brown Berets. Have been around here. I've been attending these meetings for the last 40 years. And Chief Beck, everything rests on your shoulders. The other day, I heard a boring presentation about ethics with regard to buying guns. And you, Mr. Beck, have set the example for the rest of the officers. You allowed your daughter to sell her horse to the department. Everybody was asking questions. How does Beck run this place unethically? And people do not. And people know that. People know what you're doing. And what you did to Angie Guzman is beyond anything I've seen here before. They shot her with dumb bullets, and not only did blood come out of her, but all of her intestines came out. Are you happy about that, Mr. Beck? Are the rest of the police here that are involved in Newton Division, the worst, most violent division in all of the LAPD? Are you happy about that, Mr. Beck? I understand that you came out the other day and said that you were going to help to bury her. That is a slap in the face. That is an insult to our people. Now you kill them, and then tomorrow you're going to help bury them? Is that that sounds like the Nazis to me. And I think, you're setting the example for the rest of these officers here, and they feel they can go out into the community because the way you were backing them up, and they can kill people and get away with it, and you don't change. All of you people, Soboroff here has been around for like 20 years or something. Like as long as I've been going here, he has been here. Some of you new people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Anglos, and you're the ones that control here because I know Sandra Figueroa, she don't even say anything. I've known her for many years, and she's on this commission because she's a friend with Gil Garcetti. What we need is to have an election and get all you people who are part of the establishment, get you the hell out of here, and maybe our people will be safe if the people can have an elected commission that'll do something about these killings of the police are rampant, murders, assassinations of Angie Guzman and others.
Thank you.
Hamid Khan and Pete White.
So the fish rots from the head down. And I think that saying is very appropriate out here at LAPD. 881 people murdered by cops all over the United States already this year. That's 7 hours and 31 minutes, somebody being killed by a cop. 18 people murdered just by LAPD this year. That comes to every 2 weeks somebody is being murdered by the LAPD. We're not talking about harassment. We're not talking about verbal abuse. We're not talking about just like kicking people, beating people, intimidating people, threatening people. And then, the vulgarity and the cheapness to really challenge a movement that is crying out to this whole world that we are being murdered. Black Lives Matter. And then to go out along with the Police Protective League and you chanting down the street saying, Blue Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter. Well, Blue Lives Matter. Absolutely they do, because blue lives are murdering our people. Blue Lives Matter, they absolutely do, because blue lives are out there on the street threatening our people. Blue Lives Matter, absolutely they do, because blue lives are out there just intimidating people. So for you to come out like that was nothing short of being vulgar about it. That you are using the cry and just the sheer sentiment of millions of people who have historically been a subject of enslavement and genocide, and then for you to take on and just dance down the street, shame on you, absolutely shame on you, because that's exactly an example of how the fish rot from the head down. So enough has been said by enough people. We're not going anywhere. You can have all you can have all your people who just flex the muscle. You can put a barricade around this system as long as you want to. But at the end of the day, I mean, you can ignore us, you can be silent towards us, you can make a mockery of us, but we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. I come from South Asia. Gandhi is an inspiration, and that is what he would say, that first they ignore us, then they make fun of us, then they get angry at us, but then we win. Because people at the end of the day are going to win. So you should resign.
Thank you for your
Last year when
comments.
your reappointment was up, we had brought evidence that you're useless, so I think you should resign. Yeah, save something.
So I think my comments this morning is to the commission, and it's really based on this agenda item, the chief's report. And definitely it's to you, Matt Johnson. It's mind-boggling that the commission would allow the chief to make a report, a chief's report, that leaves out major things that we see in the press, right? One of the things that you must demand he talks about are police shootings, namely the 18th shooting this year of a person who allegedly threw a bottle in the back window of a police car. I say allegedly because the chief conveniently lifted some racially charged notions of it was a 40-ounce bottle, and that was planted. That was definitely a planted quote to get the natives riled up, to make people believe that it was a person of color who potentially threw a bottle and that his death was reasonable. I urge you to demand that he talks about things that he says publicly in this forum, in the chief's report. Namely, when we think about all the shootings and killings that are going on across the country, you allow him to say nothing. I would also say to you, when the chief attempts to say there was donated horses, and this is for the new folks around the commission, and he says, and it was all sort of observed, he needs to give you the history as well. Why is it observed? It's observed because his daughter and him were doing self-dealings within the department. It's because his daughter sold the department a horse and he was involved in it, right? And you guys need to make sure that he reveals those details to you. I don't believe that you guys are reading the history and the patterns. I believe, Matt Johnson, that you should say immediately that people of color should not be allowed through the back door of their building. Do you know how racist that is to make us come through the back door? So there are things, concrete things that you need to do today, brother, if you want to be taken seriously.
Black lives, they matter here.
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 Please take your seats.
Black lives, they matter here.
Black lives, they matter here.
Black lives,
Please take your seats.
to you, Mr. Johnson. Our lives
You're
matter.
disrupting the meeting. Please take your seats.
They matter here.
Black lives, they matter here.
Okay, I'm forced to ask you to leave.
Black lives, they matter here.
Please leave the meeting.
Black lives, they matter here.
Sergeant at Arms, please escort the two people standing out.
Black lives, they matter here. We'll be back, Mr. Johnson. We're not going anywhere. We'll be back. You'll learn that our lives do matter. You'll learn that black lives matter.
This is genocide.
Colors, I need consciousness, but you want to get some consciousness, sir. Black lives, they matter here.
Black lives, they matter here.
Black lives, they matter here.
Any additional comments?
No other comments, sir. We're now on item number 3, consent agenda items. These items are considered to be routine and non-controversial, upon which the board is provided with adequate information for approval without inquiry or discussion. We do have comment cards on 3A, 3B, and 3C, and we have a recusal on 3C.
Okay, so let's hold 3A, 3B, and 3C for a moment. And can I have a motion on 3D, E, F, G, and H?
Move approval of 3D, E, F, G, H.
Second, with thanks to the donors.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. We're now on item number 3A. And we have Mr. Ted Hayes.
I submitted a card on 3A. and B, and C, and not because I had a real desire to speak on those items, although I could. I did that because you have a rule that indicates that once you begin to consider an item, cards cannot be submitted. But if you look at the method in which every city council commission and the city council itself directs people to submit cards to speak on an item, you do it at any time until that item has been concluded. Now, we never know what item is before you. You know that. Everybody here knows that. And so we have some of a quandary that we don't know what's really going on in order to submit the card. So I have cards on C, B, and C, and I will relinquish that speaking if we can agree to find some method to alert, inform the people as to what is going on here, item-wise, under consideration. That seems reasonable. Otherwise, I can hold you hostage by being at this podium talking on every consent item you have. That's needless, but it has to be a device, some technique, to find some way to have you become reasonable through coercion to inform us just what's happening and relinquish this nonsense. Once we start talking about it, you cannot. Because that's what it means when you say, once the item's under consideration, we will no longer accept cards on it. I think that's unreasonable. I think it doesn't comport with the policy all other commissions utilize. So let's revert to doing what is normal as far as meetings are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hayes, are you relinquishing your time on 3B then?
No, I would just like to know
Okay.
some of the things that's it.
Thank you. So I would like to entertain a motion on items 3A and 3B then.
Move approval of items 3A and 3B.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Items 3A and 3B are unanimously approved.
Mr. President, I need to recuse myself on item 3C.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion on item 3C?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, wait, sorry. Okay, do we have a motion on 3C?
I move we approve item 3C.
And do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 3C is unanimously approved by those present.
Thank you. We're now on item number 4, regular agenda items.
Do we have any speaker cards on well, first, would any commissioners like to pull any of the regular agenda items? I would like to pull 4C.
And 4E.
So pull 4C and 4E. Do we have any comment cards on 4A, 4C, 4A, 4B, or 4D?
No, sir.
I move we approve items 4A, 4B, and 4D.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items are unanimously approved. Let's move to item 4C then, please.
4C, Department's report dated October 1st, 2015, relative to the probationary police officer procedures audit, AD number 14-069.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Police Performance Auditor Jeffrey Phillips, Officer in Charge at Audit Division.
John Peters, Office of Operations.
Commissioners, before you have the probationary, can't speak today, sorry. Today, you have the Probationary Police Officer Procedures Audit. This audit was conducted according to the annual audit plan to look at the procedures that are done for probationary police officers. There's a total of 4 objectives and 8 tests that were conducted. And I'd like to go over each of them because just to add some context to some of these objectives. With respect to Objective 1A, looking at probationary police officers being assigned a patrol assignment only, there is a, 1A, assigned training officers rotate every 8 weeks. There's a compliance rate of 73%. I did want to point out that on table number 2, you see that although they went beyond being assigned every 8 weeks, they for the most part, they didn't go beyond the 12 weeks, or 75% of them were reassigned at the between 9 and 12 weeks. With objective 1B, patrol assignment only, we had department did very well.
Would you prefer us hold our questions to the end, or as you go through the items?
As you wish, Commissioner. I can answer questions as we go along. That's fine.
Okay. So from a big picture perspective, the probationary period I view, and I think everybody views, as a very integral part of the overall training process of these officers. So I think it's incredibly important that we get it right. And we'll go through each of these items one by one. And I'm very concerned because there are so many deficiencies in almost every item measured. And it wasn't just one bureau, it was, or one area. It was, we're seeing this trend really across the board. I would be more understanding if this was new policies and procedures that were recently enacted, but it's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that this has been a long-standing practice and something that was actually measured under the consent decree, and most of these items under the consent decree had a 95% requirement that they be hit. So I'm really concerned that we're seeing deficiencies across the board. Now, with respect to 1A, this is one area that in particular I think it's important that we see full compliance with. I can guess what the rationale is for having probationary officers rotate through different training officers. So yes, the majority of the people did rotate after 12, between 9 and 12 weeks, but I still think that's in and of itself not acceptable. And we had two people that were in this audit period that were with the same training officers for over 16 weeks. Not sure how long they were with those training officers, since it's just an over 16 weeks. So what have you implemented with respect to this particular item to make sure that probationary officers going forward are rotated every 8 weeks?
And I'm going to go ahead and defer to Commander Peters with respect to that.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
As you've stated, the training of our P1s is an extremely significant part of what we do in operations. And we are not pleased with the results of this audit. I'll say that right up front. And we understand that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of getting this back on track. To underscore the significance of that, I'm joined here today by all the Bureau commanders and one assistant commanding officer from West Bureau. They can speak directly and specifically to the things that they've done in their bureaus to address these issues. What we've done at the Office of Operations is we've discussed this at two of our direct reports meetings with the group here. Highlighted the errors that were made and talked about what we're going to do to put things in place. So I think as it goes to specific answers to those questions, I would invite the chiefs to come up and answer those. I know that several of them, since we received the results of this, have done ongoing inspections, and it appears, at least initially, that a lot of this has been rectified already. So that's kind of where we're at that point. The one thing I did want to mention, and again, first stating foremost that we understand that this did not meet our own expectation of where we should be. We do, as it goes to a couple of the objectives, 3A and 3B, the timelines, turnaround time, if you will, for probationary officers signing the police reports and also the sergeants signing off on their review. The timeline that was put in place was prior to the compressed work schedule, and not in all cases. Obviously, you've read it, you've seen some of the outliers, but we believe that turnaround time is a challenge and is oftentimes not reasonable based on the current constraints of what we're dealing with. So I've been in touch with Deputy Chief Bill Murphy, who is the chief in charge of our training bureau. And we've agreed to go back and look at that collectively, to look at the field training officer manual to see if a reasonable timeline based on work hours is worthy of consideration. We don't believe, at least in our last conversation, that this is tied into post in terms of the 7-day requirement. So we're working through that, and we're hoping that will improve things in terms of moving forward.
Great. I'd love to hear from the 4 individual bureaus on what they're doing to fix this particular issue.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bob Green, Operation Valley Bureau. So since the audit was made published, it's been a topic of our area commanding officer meetings and our all commanding officers meetings 3 separate times. My bureau training coordinators brought all the bureau training coordinators in, not only to go through the audit with them individually, but also to assess each one of their systems. And based on that assessment, they put a number of changes in place. Part of the issue was that until 2 weeks ago, the watch commanders weren't required to sign off on these reports, so the watch commanders weren't in the loop with the system. Now there's a whiteboard in all the watch commander's office with every probationer and the different dates that he has to make compliant for the watch commander and the supervisors to see every day. And so right away, we've connected the dots when it comes to communication between the training coordinators, the supervisor in charge of the probationary status reports, and the watch commanders to make sure they've been facilitated through. So far, that seems to be working very, very well. We've moved 1 training coordinator based on the low compliance within that command, and ultimately we have a secondary audit scheduled for next week to assess how everybody's doing with the new systems.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Jose Perez, Operations Central Bureau.
Good morning.
One of the things that we found in looking at this is that we had taken our eyes off the ball. Part of that was we didn't have a permanent full-time P1 coordinator in some of the commands, so we have designated that to occur. In addition, what I've directed is that P1 coordinator will meet with the captain on Mondays, Tuesday mornings at the latest, to discuss where's the status of the rating report, what's a hold up, and make sure that they're current on that. In addition, the P1 coordinator will meet with the captain before the deployment meeting, which occurs every 28 days, and then the patrol captain will know the status of all the P1. So in Central's case, where they had one that was assigned for the 16 weeks, is they'll say, hey, you've had Jose Perez has been working with Bill Scott for X amount of weeks. We need to rotate him now. So we'll have a regular part of the deployment meeting to occur at that rotation. So it'll be done before, and then they'll be able to make those moves without creating any more issues within that piece. We've also, that the P1 coordinator basically is usually part of the training unit, but which generally reports to the area captain, but the P1 coordinator will take all his actions related to the FTO program straight to the patrol captain, and then the patrol captain is the one who's been designated as the person responsible. So if there's any concerns or issues within any future audits, then that's who we will go to on that piece.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Good morning. We too at South Bureau had to take a look at our systems, and we have a failure like this. First of all, we have to own it. I mean, there's really no rhyme or reason to how we got to this point. But what we did see is that our systems needed some reinforcement and going back to the basics. What Chief Perez and Chief Green mentioned about the systems and the training coordinator being more involved in oversight of the process, we too are doing that. But also, in addition, the fact that the P1s, the probationers, are assigned during the monthly deployment meetings, we had to go back to really the basics in our deployment meetings. You know, a checklist in the deployment meetings to make sure that the P1 matrix is being looked at. It exists. We make sure that we look at it and make sure that when we assign a probationary officer to a training officer, that it does not exceed the requirements. We let that fall. And ultimately, that also goes back to accountability. As everybody else, we have a training coordinator in each area in South Bureau. That training coordinator is responsible for overseeing the P1 coordination, and that training coordinator is ultimately accountable to the area commanding officer. It should be at that level, and that's where we're going to keep it. And we'll hold our area commanding officers. Each one of them have had this discussion with me and the commander, Tingarides of the Bureau. But we have to hold our folks accountable to the processes and procedures that are in place. And we dropped on that, and that's going to be the key to getting this back in to where it needs to be.
Good morning, sir. Blake
Morning.
Chow, Operations West Bureau. I'll just quickly go over some of the specifics that we've done since the audit came out. In addition to making this a topic of our commanding officers meetings, we've also moved one P1 coordinator out of Hollywood area that was responsible for a significant number of ratings that had been served late to the probationary officer. We are having a P1 coordinators meeting actually today, and that's going to continue every DP so that all the P1 coordinators are kind of managed by the Bureau and they know what the expectations are. We conducted an inspection yesterday of all of our P1 books, and I'll just briefly go over the results of that today. We'll also be conducting inspections of our P1 books, our Bureau inspection out at each area every 2 weeks, and going through those books and make sure that everybody's keeping up on them. Because the key really here is having kind of some Bureau input with that P1 coordinator. That's really what's going to keep everybody, on track. So the inspection that we had yesterday, we examined all P1 books on Objective 1A, 1B, Objective 2, and Objective 3A. We're at 96% right now.
I'm sorry, what was that percentage?
96%.
96, okay.
Yeah. The Objective 3B, 3C, 4A were at 100%. So
I'm sorry, what time period was
that was looking at basically July and August of this year.
Thank you.
So it's very recent probationary book. So you can see that we've made significant progress on some of the emphasis that we've been placing on it. And then finally, with our commanding officers, if we keep falling down and we keep trying to make changes and nothing's happening, we'll have to hold our captains and our area COs accountable for the compliance. So that's kind of what West Bureau has been doing.
Okay, thank you. Chief Scott, just on while you're sitting there, Objective 1B, we had actually had a strong compliance rate. I think it was 95%. But there was one officer who was assigned to a desk 11 times. That's obviously very concerning for the obvious reasons.
Yes, sir. And that really goes to accountability. What happened with that particular situation is that probationary officer's training officer was off with an injury-related duty. He was assigned to the desk with a P3, and here's an example where the coordinator basically misinterpreted the rules. He thought that assigning that officer to the desk with a P3 met the requirements. Well, the requirements clearly state that they have to work the field. So, that's an accountability issue, and that should have been caught at a number of levels, but it wasn't. So that's going back to the basics, looking at our rules, making sure we understand them, and making sure we abide by them, and then holding our people accountable, including myself, to those standards.
Okay. You want to move to Objective 2?
Sure. Just looking at
I'm sorry, were you finished with Objective 1?
I was. With Objective 2, the difference between Objective 1B and Objective 2 is that that final probationary period, patrol assignment only, is in essence where the probation officer is restricted from working by themselves or an L unit and working with another probationary officer. And in this instance, 61% of the time, they worked in one of those two, 10 geographic areas, 19 officers. There was a total of 43 instances. It looks like of those 43 instances, by and large, it was officers working by themselves or working that L unit, which was most prominent, where it was only 14 where they worked with another probationary police officer. And then looking at Objective number 3.
But going to stay on Objective 2. I mean, obviously that's very concerning because it's not only a danger to the officers, it's a danger to the public, I view. I mean, you have officers who are not fully trained. They've been patrol officers for a very limited period of time. and you have 29 instances where they were on patrol by themselves.
Right.
And another 13 where they're with another probationary officer.
And when they're on patrol by themselves, my understanding is that they're limited on types of call. And my understanding is they don't take calls. They are taking cold reports. In other words, they're not doing traffic enforcement, things of that nature. But nonetheless, there are reasons why they're not supposed to be working by themselves or with a probationary police officer. Sure.
And I mean, to me, this is an area where we should have not 95% compliance, 100% compliance. Are we confident that going forward, we're not going to see this again?
We are, Commissioner, and I think that if you've heard some of the things that the chiefs and the commander had spoken about, the things that they put in place to ensure that. But the one thing I would like to say, your comments are right on target. However, when they reach that third phase, as we call it, of their probationary, they are what we refer to as field certified. So they've demonstrated abilities and knowledge that's signs them off, if you will, in terms of the basics understandings of being a police officer. So it's not like we're just putting them out there by themselves without reaching that mark. And again, it shouldn't have happened. And I think that moving forward, that the steps have been put in place to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Okay.
With respect to objective number 3, just for objectives 3A and 3B, the issue there is timeliness with getting these probationary police officer weekly evaluation reports, or PPOWers, signed by the probationary police officer and by the supervisor. So it was being done. It's just an issue of timeliness. And I think Commander Peters mentioned the fact that maybe they should be looking at how the 3/12 schedule may have impacted that requirement.
What's the impact of late signing? Is there an issue potentially with a probationary officer that wouldn't otherwise be promoted to the next level? Do we miss any timelines there? What's the impact? Is it just a matter of it's late, no big deal, or is there real potential?
Well, I think the impact is that they're advised of how they're doing on a very consistent basis within a short period of time, weekly, that they're advised on how they're doing well or if they're not doing well. However, in one of the other objectives that I'll go over, we see where when there was any deficient reporting, that they were advised 100% of the time.
Sorry, I just have a follow-up question with respect to that. So your explanation is that, or I'm sorry, you had mentioned that this issue with under objective, well, I'm talking about objective 3B specifically, and that there's 37% compliance, and you had just stated that that was an issue of timeliness, and so I think I'm misunderstanding perhaps the table here. It says that 952 of these PPOWers were not signed by the field supervisor by the last day of the rating period, but then there are, most of them are 1 to 7 days late, and then 8 to 14 days, 50 to 30, 31 plus days late. The way I read this is that there are some that were not signed at all. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
Okay, so
I'm
in
sorry.
the end,
They were all
okay.
signed. They
Okay.
just were not signed in that timely,
Uh-huh.
on a timely
Okay.
basis.
Okay.
And so when we look at then objective 3C, and that is a completion of the supervisor weekly report, we do see that the department did well with having the supervisors sign off on those PPOWers. 96%, or I'm sorry, completing the supervisor weekly report. And I think that's important with respect to the overall supervisory oversight, and that is that the supervisors are providing that weekly supervisor report to the probationers. With objective 4A, again, I mentioned this, any time that within our sample that probation police officers had some deficiency, the department did really well in documenting that deficiency and advising the probationary police officer. we looked at how many terminations of probationary police officers had occurred just because or just due to performance. And there's only 3 during our audit time period. Of the 3, 2 did not meet compliance. They had the necessary review conducted by the commanding officer, with the exception of the summary of the interview with the concerned employee. Everything else had been completed. So there was one thing that had not been done during that process. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that with recommendation number 1, this was actually my oversight, where there's a recommendation for Police and Policy and Procedures Division to revisit the FTO manual. That responsibility is actually with Training Bureau.
Sorry, can you just explain again what on those 2 that didn't meet the standard? You said they were missing one part. Could you explain what that part was again?
There's a summary of the interview that the commanding officer has with the probationary police officer.
That's a summary for the record?
Right, it's for the record.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly.
Any other commissioner questions?
Yeah, just a comment. I was surprised, first of all, I'm happy to hear how you're reacting to these, and especially I guess it was West Bureau, that things that were going at 37% are now 100%, 33%, 52%. I was surprised from the audit perspective that when you had 5 areas where the standards were, C, D, F, and F minus, that there were only 2 recommendations in the audit. And so leave that alone. I'm happy that you guys went deeper than the recommendations that were in the audit. But I just wanted to bring to the attention of the audit group, I'm just surprised that there weren't more specific and detailed recommendations in something where that had so many obvious issues. And I'm glad you guys took it seriously, and hopefully there'll be best practice discussions, because what happened in one can happen in the other, and that's getting a perfect score, like the president said.
Commissioner, maybe I can speak for Randy on this.
I'm wrong here, but
Well, no, you're not wrong. The department has good practices in place to prevent this from happening. They were just not followed. This is something that we've done very well at in the past. We have a tremendous turnover in our command officers this year. A lot of very young captains that may not be as familiar with everything as some of our older, more senior folks have been in the past. One of the reasons this is on the audit schedule is because we think it's so important. So what I would say is that all the commands, the things they talked about to you,
yeah,
those are that's police 101 stuff. This doesn't require any re-engineering. It requires adherence to what we have. Keeping these things on track is really about staying within the basic procedures that we have. The path is well trodden to success on this.
Okay.
So, and I think that's probably what.
Yes,
I don't want to speak for audit division, but that's probably why they didn't have a lot of new recommendations, because what they really need is for people to pay attention to the old ones.
Got it. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, and just in audit terms, if you will, the internal controls are there. And so therefore, policy and procedures there. We don't feel that because of a significant finding, that we have to make a recommendation when we're looking at the process and, well, the internal controls are there. They just need to be acted upon.
Okay, good, thank you.
Just a quick comment. I share the concerns that you discussed initially, and particularly the reference to the consent decree, and now the chief's reference to the turnover in command, suggesting how important it is that this be audited and that the performance be improved. And along those lines, I certainly appreciate Commander Peters, your response, and all of the Bureau responses that were so substantive. And I think it's a very healthy discussion, but clearly pointing out an area of some importance. Thank you.
Okay, we do have 2 comment cards. We have Michael Williams and Wayne.
So if you're benched, I'm using benched as desk, for 11 times, how many times do you have to get benched for doing something before you get fired? Am I talking to myself? I guess so. I guess I'm not gonna get an answer. That's ridiculous to me, that someone can be subsequently taken out of the field 11 times on probation and is not relieved of their duty. That's the kind of things that we're talking about when we talk about police being just protected, you know? It's just, it's really silly that it takes all that. And what about certain situations? Why are GSP talking about probationary periods? Why are we talking about actually what things are capable of getting someone fired? Because obviously, officers Villegas and Rumpler, they're not fired, and they killed an unarmed, innocent young man. So what can you get fired off of the LAPD, or is it a job for life? What does it take for someone to be relieved of their duty and deemed incompetent at what they're doing when they're sitting there doing wrong? You guys are seeing that they're doing wrong, but they're being protected. It just seems dumb to me.
Thank you.
Yes, they have a long probationary period, and normally they get 3 shootings. It's like 3 strikes. So probationary sounds like school. Sounds like we're dealing with children. Innocent, isn't it? They're on a probationary period. A probationary period. What's that mean, a probationary period? You get started in the department, you get your badge, and you go out in the field, and you're still on probation. I don't understand that. How can you be on probation? That's because you're so dumb. You hire these people and put them on the payroll, and virtually it would take an act of God to ever fire them, because you don't first vet these people to see if they really should have the badge. Psychological tests aren't done. Field tests aren't done. They're just given a badge and a probationary period. So in the probationary period, you get 3 chances. So you go boom, boom. Well, that's 2 shots, but if you only shoot 1 person, you get 2 more chances in your probationary period. So you should be so proud of yourselves. So anybody, please apply. Just get the badge. You're on probation, but you get 3 chances. You can do anything you want. You get 3 chances. As long as you don't screw up 3 times, you get your full commission, right? So, you know, when you have to go for federal service, CIA, OSS, FBI, they have to do intense psychological profiles to determine if you should hold that commission. You should do the same. Too many shootings in the field. Something's going on. There's just too much violence. Too much. And you need to step back from it, because you're killing people, you're shooting people at an alarming rate, and something has to be done to reverse that.
Thank you. Any more speaker cards?
No, sir.
Thank you. I'm very encouraged by the work that's obviously been done since you've learned of these results. But I would appreciate if you could come back in 90 days with a report analyzing the same criteria, so we can see exactly where we are in all of these issues. Do I have a motion to
Move approval of the item.
with the one change from the Policies and Procedures Division to Training Bureau for recommendation 1? Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may, a housekeeping issue. The board secretary advised me that Mr. Hayes had submitted a card in a timely manner for item 4A, but it was misplaced when the item was called, so it would be appropriate to have a motion to reconsider it, item 4A, for a speaker card, and then to allow Mr. Hayes his 2 minutes to speak.
I move we reconsider item 4A.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimously approved. Mr. Hayes?
Well, that's a surprise. And I'd like to thank the executive director for bringing that to the attention of the president, and the president accommodating the director. Actually, I had planned on talking about something you made no mention of, because 4A, for the audience consideration, deals with the assignments. I don't know what they are. I'll look in the binder and find out what they are. But I'd just like to point out to the president, there's a black newspaper called The Wave. I will provide this copy to the executive director, and he can Xerox it for the rest of you members. Or next week, I'll bring you a personal copy if you'd like one. And the headline is Tenure of Failure. And this is because there was a demonstration in front of Jackie Lacey's office to the district attorney about the police activity. And so there'll be several demonstrations like that at Century City in the offices of Mr. Johnson. Maybe that will affect his lifestyle, his living, I don't know. But we're going to go to his employers and talk about the fact that he should not be here because his history is one of failure. The Urban League, Boys and Girls Club, no success whatsoever. Did not move that on to the Promise Zone or anything like that. So he's sitting here as a representative of a man who has not achieved anything of useful development in the community. So I'll see you in Century City, Avenue of the Stars, and we'll see what your employers have to say about your being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for this item?
Move approval of the item.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So move
Thank
to
you.
item 5E?
4E.
4E, sorry.
Department's report dated October 1st, 2015, relative to the department's quarterly discipline report, second quarter 2015.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commander Stuart Maislin, Internal Affairs Group.
Commander Maislin, I don't know if there are particular comments that you're planning on providing, but I pulled this item because I just want to highlight its importance, and I understand that an evaluation will be made by the Inspector General's office, and we're going to benefit a lot from that analysis. The data itself, I've looked through, and I'm going to reserve my specific questions about any data points once that Inspector General's analysis does come forward. But if you do have comments, then I'd like for you to give them, and then
Well,
and then maybe I'll
no, I don't. I mean,
provide-
it's a voluminous report,
Right.
and there's a lot of data in it. And because of that, Deputy Chief McCarthy and I have actually been working on streamlining this report. It originally came about as a consent decree requirement, and during the consent decree, it became the standard that's been repeated and repeated and repeated, and that's what's been done. So we're looking at actually trying to make it a little more useful and a little bit smaller, a little bit more condensed, yet still provide, important information to you, and that's a work that's in process right now because it requires extensive programming with our IT people, and we don't have a date yet as to when to expect it. I mean, they're working on it with a whole host of other priorities as they can get to it. But it is a priority in our minds, and it's something that we're going to continue working on and move toward.
I just have a comment on that. I certainly appreciate simplification, and I'm not one to ask for more and more paper. But on this issue, I would be concerned if there would be less information in the new reports than what we've been getting. And so I encourage you, my guess is you already are, but encourage you to involve the Inspector General in your discussion about changing the report so we don't get to the point
Yeah,
where
we
it
have.
gets here and we have to say what happened to X, Y, Z.
Yes, we have, and we met with the IG along the way, and we provided them a template of what we planned on doing, and
They're on board?
and they were on board. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, I appreciate it.
And if I could ask the Inspector General's office if there are any preliminary observations that would be, that the Inspector General would be able to share at this time? And if not, when we would receive an analysis of the data?
Good morning. We've not done any analysis of the current report. It generally takes us about a quarter to do a review. So probably in about 3 months, you can get, we expect to be able to produce a report for you. And regarding the revisions to the report, Commander Maislin has been in touch with us several times to talk about proposed revisions, and we share some of your concerns. We think some of the data is probably a little cumbersome, but some of it serves us very well, and especially some of the information in the back of the report that allows us to do some specific analysis.
Thank you.
And the information in the back of the report won't change, because those are standardized reports that we do on a monthly basis, and actually we post them on our Professional Standards Bureau webpage, so all department employees actually have access to those reports, and they can see, what kind of discipline is imposed on our employees.
Okay, thanks. No other comments from me.
Do we have any?
Approval item?
Do we have any
Oh, sorry.
comment cards on this item?
Yes, sir. We have 3. We have Indigo Child, Wayne, and Hamid Khan.
I usually don't ask questions of you guys because I really don't care about your opinions, because you guys don't seem to care about what we have to say. But talking about discipline, I want to ask you guys a question. Matt Johnson, you're excused from this because you're new, so you wouldn't know. What has this commission done in maybe the past year? What has this commission done to stop police killings in Los Angeles? What have you guys done to stop infield fatalities? Because a lot of these fatalities could have been handled without the use of lethal force. Is it new training? What has been done? Am I talking to myself again? Steve, come on.
Sure,
this is your opportunity.
You know that, so we won't. It's against the law.
This is your opportunity to address the
It's
board.
against the law? Steve, I've seen you up here answer a question of a person. I've seen you answer a question for a person, Steve Soboroff, so that's a big fat lie. Wow. So you guys are not going to answer the question, and this is why we can't get anywhere, because you guys won't cooperate. And then you wonder why people are up here exactly, it's an agenda item. That's why that's why I'm asking you. You can ask him questions, but I can't ask you guys questions about anything that you guys do. Does that seem fair? Does that seem right to anybody in this room? That I can't ask a question of you people who are supposed to be working for me about my safety and my protection from officers that are going crazy and killing people? There was just a killing a week ago. 2 weeks ago. This is amazing.
Thank you for your comments.
But Steve, I forgot. Heil, I forgot to do that. I'm sorry. So anyway, I should have had my hood on. So anyway, somebody I understood in the valley on Sepulveda and Victory threw a little beer bottle at the back of a window of a cruiser. And you know what happened? Boom, 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 boom. Gunshots in Van Nuys. Boy, that's a dangerous ghetto over there. Lido Pizza, Office Depot. Oh yeah, those are dangerous hoods. That's the dangerous place over there. Yes, sir. The definite dangerous barrio of Sepulveda Boulevard and Victory. Boy, that's a real dangerous ghetto, isn't it? Boy, I'd be afraid to walk there. Yeah, the problem is since the age of fucking 5, I've been going through there. I never had one problem. I go to Lido Pizza. Lido's, where all the cops get their free pizza and beer and wine to go, over there, the nice little Italian restaurant. It's right over there in the corner. That's a real dangerous place. So somebody throws a beer bottle at a cruiser. Now that's a death penalty offense, says the LAPD. That sound right? Of course it does. You love it. Country club people, you love it. Keep the people in line. Fear. Now, on YouTube, on Drudge Report, page 1, you came back with a counter proposal. Now the police are afraid they're being stalked. Channel 2, CBS, the puppets now claim women married to cops are afraid that their husbands aren't going to come home. Oh, bullshit. You're not afraid of anything. You're the oppressors. We're the ones that are afraid.
Oh. So we're talking about a disciplining piece. So let's see between the Police Protective League, the chief, and this commission itself, what kind of disciplining is even possible. So where was the disciplining when the complicity and the collusion and the conspiracy to commit a crime was taking place, when 90 out of 300 patrol cars, their antennas were sabotaged and broken? He talks about the consent decree, he's speaking from both sides of his mouth. That consent decree was sabotaged right there. Where was the disciplining? He decided he's not going to investigate. He's complicit, Soboroff, because he knew about it in September. He didn't tell the commission until January of 2014. What disciplining? I mean, what bullshit is this? What kind of facade is this? What about misclassification of crime reports? What about that? What about disciplining on that thing, right? So let's keep on going on. What about disciplining of people when you give them the tool to legitimately engage in speculative policing and racially profiled people? We gave you an example. The Inspector General did the audit of the Suspicious Activity Reporting Program. 31% of these secret files that go to fusion centers were open on the black community. What happens? Any evidence of racial profiling? No, zero evidence of racial profiling. Any disciplining about that? And did you know that in the gender count, 50% were black women in that thing? You are giving the tools to people to engage in racial profiling. You are instigating people to engage in racial profiling. So let's talk about that. And then, just to round it all off, 18 people have already been killed in the city of Los Angeles. So what facade is this of disciplining? I mean, he comes in, of course he gets a fat paycheck, and he talks about the consent decree. The consent decree was in tatters. It was completely just sabotaged. But absolutely nothing is going to happen because him, it happens to be all this white male, this kind of like, male, pale, and stale grouping that is now just committing these crimes, and they're complicit and collusion is going on. So, don't give us this facade of disciplining.
And there are no other comment cards, sir?
Do I have a motion?
Move approval, yeah.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion moves.
Thank you. We're now on item number 5, public comment. We have 15 comment cards. The first 5, Reverend Jennifer Gutierrez.
Since we have 15 comment cards, we're going to limit them to 1 minute each, please.
Reverend Jennifer Gutierrez, Jacqueline Richardson, Pastor Hugh John Marie, Ted Hayes, and Pete White.
Hi, my name is Reverend Jennifer Gutierrez. I'm the pastor at St. John's United Methodist Church. Our church is located across from the Watts Towers. We've had an increase in crime at the church recently, and I've been very disappointed with the police response to that crime. A number of petty things, cars, members getting broke into, car parts stolen, that sort of thing, and the police do not respond to these. Our keyboard that we use for worship was stolen out of the church. The police did not respond to that. We had to go down to the police office and file the report. We had 2 bricks thrown through our window in the middle of a summer day camp that we had in June with 35 children in the church. The police did not respond. On September 18th, recently, our church was broken into, and this time it triggered the alarm, so the police did respond about 45 minutes later and did a report. Unfortunately, they didn't look through the building. The person had pulled the alarm off the wall and disabled it. Underneath that, they had left this backpack with the perpetrator's cell phone, with his mother's number, his gain officer's number, all kinds of information in here. I called the officer who responded the following Monday and have not received a call back yet. I've called my council office and talked to my field deputy who said he was going to call the captain. That was on last Monday. I still have not got a response back yet.
Thank you for your.
Our church
thank
was
you for your
broken
comment.
into again. I'm assuming it's the same person who disabled the alarm.
I'll have someone speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jacqueline Richardson.
This concerns holographs. President Obama has holographs. Holographs are not a fad, and they will not be going away anytime soon. Some are working the city, some are on the streets, some are stealing from Ralph's and Rite Aid's drugstores. The people may not know they're holographs doing that. They're quick as a flash. Some of the holographs may have jobs right now. Holographs are capable of causing large-scale programs. It depends upon how they're programmed. Some drive vehicles on the street. I don't know if they drive the highways or not. Some may not be programmed correctly and can cause problems. They're not a fad and they're not going away. Some of the holographs, many of them are white. Government has to be informed about the holographs at some point and aid in their development and the scope of their uses.
Thank you for your comment.
Pastor Q, John Marie.
Can you call up the other speakers to stand
Okay.
there so we can?
Okay, the following 5 speakers. Tud Hayes, Pete White, and then the next 5 are Jamie Garcia, Hamid Khan, Agustin, Bishop Juan Carlos, and David Sanchez.
I'm Pastor Q from the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Church Without Walls, Skid Row. 9-1.
Both showed me that our country and the LAPD is in complete failure. This flag is upside down. Complete, total failure. And we're going to be here. We're going to take it apart piece by piece, limb by limb. Soboroff, look at this. Piece by piece, limb by limb. Piece by piece, limb by limb, because it is our duty to do so.
Thank you for your comments.
Jamie Garcia.
Since this commission could not remember Norma Angelica Guzman, known as Angie, I'd like everybody to stand for a moment of silence for her. Sandra, you should look. Thank you to my brothers and sisters who can actually have some dignity.
So, not that I was a fan of this man, but Adam Smith once said that beware of the vile maxims of the masters of mankind. They know how to take, they don't know how to give. And here we are, beware of the maxims of this group, where constantly people are being killed. And this is what the world needs to see constantly. We hold the DOJ responsible, we hold the LAPD responsible, we hold Charlie Beck responsible, we hold Steve Soboroff responsible, we hold the LAPD Police Commission responsible, because LAPC fails. It continues to fail. This is what they do. The Police Protective League protects them. The Police Protective League has the power. The Protective League bullies people, and everybody else submit, sabotaging the consent decree. Beware of the vile maxims of the masters of mankind. You are a person of color. Beware.
Agustin Cebada, followed by Bishop Juan Carlos Mendez and David Sanchez.
Very interesting that you had this report on probationary officers and all this stuff. And it seems to me we were talking about nonfeasance. That includes you, Mr. Paysinger, and quit frowning at me. It's an intimidating look. I don't know how many of you are aware that Angie Guzman was killed by two officers. One was a probationary officer and the other one was a trainee. Do you know that? Our sources reveal that to us. So what does that mean for this commission? You probably could be taken into account too when the suit comes down, and because you did do a damn thing about what happened to her. You put a probationary officer out there with a trainee, and they blasted her with dumb bullets, blew her guts all over the sidewalk and everything. You think you think you can get away with that? You think the people are just going to stand for that? You think that you, Mr. Johnson, who are the chairman, you're nonfeasance also. You don't do your job. What have you called Beck into the office and told him, hey, you guys are screwing up. We need to do something because I'm the president. No, you're just there. You're just a puppet like the rest, except, Paysinger
Thank you,
and
sir, for your
Beck are the
comments.
ones who call the shots here. So, hey, you're the president, so do something.
Bishop Juan Carlos Mendez.
Good morning. In the Bible, we read the story of Cain and Abel. After Cain kills Abel and God confronted him with the question, "Where is your brother?" Cain responds by saying, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Well, the LAPD is our brother's keeper. Your motto, to protect and to serve. Well,
I'm here to voice my concern for the lack of attention to the Angie Jimenez incident. All the information we currently have in the community is what we heard on television that day. I've been paying attention to your meetings, and I've been asking some of the people that attend regularly, have they talked about this incident? And their answer is no. Well, you need to pay attention. The community is upset. They might not be here, but you'll hear them in the streets if this matter is not resolved. A lot of people in our communities are asking us, Bishop, Pastor, what's going on? Tomorrow I'm going to have a meeting in the community, and I'm calling for about 70 pastors to gather together. Now, 70 pastors represent hundreds and thousands of people. So I suggest you start paying attention to all the communities that are represented here in the city of Los Angeles. Some of our brothers say Black Lives Matter. Well, I'm here to tell you that all lives matter. And we're all important. We live in this city, we love this city, and we want peace in the city. But
Thank
the
you, sir,
only
for your
way we
comments.
can have peace in the city is if there's justice.
Thank you for your comments.
David Sanchez, and the last 5 speakers, Patricia Mendoza, Michael Williams, Wayne, Bill Watkins, and TJ Tarjamo.
Yes, David Sanchez, also former deputy for Yvonne Burke. I know where a lot of you are coming from. You're all comfortable, you're all middle class, and you don't give a damn about the poor people because you got a job, and the poor people don't, and so you look down on them, and you oppress the poor people. And so that's why it's important. You know, I was working in an area of reducing the violence, and we were able to reduce the violence from 2,000 homicides per year to 1,000 homicides per year during the 90s with the help of the Brown Berets. The Brown Berets played a role in reducing the violence. Once again, we're talking about reducing police violence because it's still costing taxpayers money. I mean, how much does one death cost? Just the coroner's office alone, $10,000 per death. So we're saying you need to save taxpayers money and stop killing people because it's costing the taxpayers dollars. It makes you look bad. We need a new police chief. We need a Chicano for a police chief. And we need Chicanos on your commission, not Hispanics. We need Chicanos on the commission who know the history of the Southwest. Therefore, it's very important to stop the violence and also behave more like professionals and behave more like human beings working in our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patricia Mendoza, not present. Wayne.
Yes. Well, the entertainment lawyer, the new president, Sig Heil. So, it's been a nice meeting again. We talked about lots of nice things, more killings. But I have good news for you. Your pension committee is meeting at 11 o'clock at the DWP headquarters to raise rates 5.5% on water and power for the next 5 years. So that's another $256 million a year. That's $1.25 billion for your pension. So you can use that and paper over all this shit, all the settlements for all the shootings. It's just paper, right? You're just here, the next puppet. But see, they think you're involved in all of this. You're not. You're just a figurehead. The real brains of the operations, the Jew boys over there. See, they are the ones with the money and the intelligence and the campaign donors. You're just there. You're the figurehead. You know, you're lighter. You're actually whiter than me. So you got to get a blacker one next time. See, Soberov. Remember that. You got to get a real black one. See, because otherwise you look too white. It looks like a white panel. You know, got to make it look more better for the cameras. I'm very surprised. You got to do a better job.
Patricia Mendoza.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to try not to cry and make this simple and short. 2 years ago, Chief Beck wrote a letter to me saying that for me to come to this building so they can do a police report regarding a property that was stolen from me in 2004. I was sent to the Rampart Police Station. I was locked up here. They bully me and harass me. As of today, I haven't got my police report. After 8 years, I've learned a little bit about real estate. I can report this to my title insurance and they would provide free attorneys. When my house was stolen, I had long conversations with the Department of Fraud and Real Estate here. They promised me, and after they heard my story, they said I had a good case and for me to come down so they can do a police report. As of today, I haven't gotten anything. And not too long ago, I've been bullied and harassed by some police officers at the Rampart Police Station. So I'm here today with all due respect. I need your help, and I'm desperate. I feel like I can't breathe, and I feel like I was raped from my dreams. And I've been bullied and harassed, and I've been a victim of some police officers which I've already investigated them. And some police officers at the Rampart told me, we know who they are and you need to report them. I have people that tell me I'm stupid and dumb, but I need to I've learned that I'm on my own. I represent myself, and I gotta be mentally and physically prepared for what's gonna be coming to me.
Thank you for your
Thank
comments,
you.
ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am, Sergeant Oftenberg, she'll raise her hand. You can speak to her afterwards. See her over there?
Thank you.
Over there. She's over there, ma'am.
Michael Williams.
Steve Soboroff, you're a piece of shit. You're laughing at this lady who's trying to tell you about something, a corruption in your system, and you're over there sitting there smiling, looking off into the distance. This is what we're talking about. You guys are kicking out members of the community because they're showing protest, and you think that's going to stop us from coming and disrupting your meetings. Well, it's not. You know what's going to stop us from coming here every week, disrupting your meetings? Actually listening to us and doing something about the problem. Because you can kick us out all you want, but we're going to come back. You can stop us from coming into this meeting, but we're just going to have our own meetings outside of this police department. You can arrest us for doing that, and then more people will come in our place because they'll see the deception that you guys are trying to pull on them. So you can't stop what's going to happen. You can't stop us from being here. You can't stop us from voicing our opinions. All you can do is either participate or move out the way.
Bill Watkins.
Thank you. A minute's tough for me. I like to talk. I'm grateful to be here. I kind of almost ditched my ministry recently, so it's nice to see people of faith here. I thought my ministry was vain, so I'm going with poetry more now. But anyways, to my point, really quick, with 30 seconds, I need help from the police on a couple of things. I think your safety officers, there's kind of a neat program. I think deployment of them into the streets would be a neat idea. Get non-lethal officers out there helping. I'm picking up trash today, all day. I did on Friday, I did on Saturday. My streets are filled with trash. CPC 374 is not being enforced. You guys can write that down, look it up later. That's littering. Also, I'm going to talk about fireworks already. June and July, we're not enforcing firework laws in the city. Safety officers could be the way to go. Call me, I'll work for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
TJ Tarjamo.
Good morning.
Good morning.
TJ Tarjamo, I'm director with the Los Angeles Police Protective League. Wanted to address some of the stuff that I've heard today from the world of rainbows and unicorns, and reality just not comport with what's going on out there. I served in communities from Skid Row to Watts to Rampart for 16 years. And the good news is that an overwhelming majority
please do not
of
interrupt the
Evangelinos
Can he start
like the
over, because I
police.
can't hear what he's saying.
And
The only person who's entitled to
it is
speak is
because
the
of
person at the
officers
podium.
like Villegas and Wamper, the fine officers who keep hundreds of thousands of citizens safe every year, who appreciate police services. And I can guarantee, like in the past, today, and in the future, if you shoot at the police, you try to stab them, you try to inflict bodily harm on them, it is exactly. Do not try to remove a police officer's gun from the holster. The results are dire and could be deadly. Thank you.
Do we have any
That
other
is the
speakers?
final card on this item. We're now on item number 6, closed session. We do have 3 comment cards. We have Wayne,
What is this
Indigo
now?
Child, and Ted Hayes.
Session.
Mr. President, would you like 1 minute or 2? That's 3 cards.
2 minutes.
As you no doubt know, Washington is watching. LA has been the site of the most destructive urban riots in the history of this country. What starts in California spreads toward the east. We know that. The consent decree was an effort to try to see to it that that kind of major destruction did not occur. Of course, it was the Highway Patrol the first time, and it was Rodney King the second time. The question is, what about the police commission? Anybody observing the conflict here at the police commission would say that the police commission seems to be the agitative force among the population in LA right now. And I'm inclined to agree on some aspects. I'm hoping that since Chief Beck is here, I can't address my remarks to him, although he is on the agenda, allegedly, for closed session. So I would suggest that some members of the police commission who can perhaps consult some sociologists about how can we deal with this. Do we have a confinement process? Do we have a whatever? But Washington is watching, and they're listening, and they're observing, and they're concerned about LA and the coming perhaps disruption. I think you alerted to that also. So the chief has an enormous responsibility to design some way in which the police department can deal with the population. What we saw with the Protective League is not the way. Okay, it is not the way. He may be entirely right, but his message in this audience and when the public is entirely wrong.
Thank you.
I'm here to talk about the disciplinary actions on police again. This is, again, nothing's being done about this. And you have a guy that's talking about, well, if you pull a gun or you have a knife or whatever. Ezell Ford was just walking to his home. He was just walking the street. What did he do to deserve to be pulled over, harassed by the police, and then assaulted and arrested, and then killed? What did he do to deserve that? What does anybody do to deserve to be killed when non-lethal force is available? You guys have tasers, you have batons, you have mace, you have all this other equipment that you guys could be using, yet you just go for the gun. Why? Why are you so eager to kill somebody? Why not try to exhaust every opportunity that you have to save somebody's life? I don't care what they did. I don't care if they stole. I don't care if they jaywalked. I don't care what they did. They don't deserve to die. They don't deserve to be killed. And I don't know, maybe y'all got to get some better training. Maybe you have to be able to know how to disarm somebody better or something for you guys not to be so trigger happy to just pull a gun out and just kill people. A young man was just he was just walking above my street, was killed by the police. He didn't have no gun. He was running away from them because they're harassing him. Day in and day out, I see it. People on Skid Row, they can testify, they see it. Police just harassing people, harassing them, and then when they get sick and tired of it and try to fight and stand up for themselves, they get killed. I'm not, even if somebody has a knife, it doesn't mean that they have to die. It doesn't mean that your officers have to kill them. Why? We're trying to protect the community. You guys are trying to kill it.
Thank you for your comments.
Don't thank me. Do something about it. When I ask you a question, answer my question. Do something about it. Don't just sit up here and thank me trying to get brownie points.
Wayne?
And reset this clock.
They gave you 2 more minutes. Yes. So, I like that. The land of rainbows and unicorns. Your lovely Nazi cocksucker from the Police Protective League was here today. The cocksuckers came here today and warned us, don't look at your cops or you'll be shot. Don't say anything bad about your cops or you'll be shot. Don't call us, you'll be shot. Don't drive in front of us or you'll be shot. That's your Police Protective League. Isn't that a wonderful little man? A little fuck like that with his little crew cut thinks he's such a fucking thug. You had a guy that was here, he was down in Panama in 1992. You ever been in a foreign operation? You know what the fuck goes down there? See, that guy knows what bloodshed is. Some of us served our fucking country in interesting little ways a long time ago. And some of the shit we did we're not really proud of. We did it for the fucking flag. But you guys do it for a pension. You kill people for a fucking pension. That's all you're doing is doing this for money. You're whores, money-changing fucking whores. That's why you let them break in the church. That's a symbol of your power. Break them into the churches because the churches stand for God. And you don't know what God is. You know what money is. Money changers. And that's what you are. It's what your DWP is, Herb Wesson Jr. Every fucking thing you do is about the money. You don't do it for your country. This guy that was in Panama, he did it for his country. You don't do it for your country. You do it to protect the protection racket so you can get your pensions. Your police chief doesn't even live in LA County. None of your cops live in LA City. You don't send your kids to the schools here. You're a foreign Hessian police force, a militarized police force. So fuck them and the Police Protective League. Asshole, okay?
There are no other cards on this item. The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item number 6A, B, and C in accordance with Government Code 54957.
Front row.
Hi.
Okay. The Board of Police Commissioners has concluded its work in closed session. We are back in open session. In closed session, item number 6A1 was discussed and the chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. In closed session, item number 6A2 was discussed and the chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. In closed session, item number 6B was adjudicated. And in closed session, item number 6C was discussed. Commissioner, is there a motion for adjournment?
There a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned. Thank you to my brothers and sisters who can actually have some dignity.